everybody. Welcome on. Today, I have my wonderful friend who we have grown to connect with, and I just love you so much. And I'm just excited to do this talk with you today. So, Sue Bygrove, welcome on. It's good to see you, although I see you all the time because we're so connected and I love you so much. Today, what we're going to talk about is mental health and spirituality, and how we can combine the two, maybe help some of you guys, some of our viewers, to know that you're not alone. There's people like myself and Sue here to support you, and also maybe to just decipher what that mental health looks like, what it feels like, and how spirituality can maybe help you in navigating through that journey or that experience that you are currently on. So, Sue, thank you for showing up today. Sue is a mental health advocate, and I asked her to come on and help talk about this stuff because I think Sue is firsthand with experience of mental health, and yeah, you have a lot to bring to us. So welcome on, Sue. Give a little intro. Who are you, and why can we call you a mental health advocate?
Well, thank you very much, Taylor, for having me. And I love seeing you and spending time and talking with you. And I'm excited to have this opportunity to talk about mental health and spirituality and the link between them, because there is a definite link. Who am I? I am a mother, a wife. Um, that's how I used to identify myself, I guess, first of all. And I'm not, I'm me. And I advocate for mental health, and I'm developing and exploring my spirituality. Mental health to me became 4.5 years ago, became a major thing in my life that I recognized. And my daughter attempted to take her own life, and by the grace of God, did not succeed. And we are here today to talk about it and my journey with it and what it has brought to my table. And I have, for the past year, been exploring my spirituality, and it has helped me immensely with my mental health. And I'm going to start by saying, I'm putting a disclaimer out there. I am not a licensed psychiatrist, psychologist, any of that. And I'm not here to say that you can just take your mind and overcome any mental health issues you have, because that's not the case.
Right.
There is, like we were talking before, I totally believe that there is a spectrum that our mental health is on. And whether these are the right words to use, but one end is, we'll say, minor. And I believe every living human being has had mental health issues on a minor level. Then as you go along the spectrum, there's major, and then it can go even further to extreme. I believe spirituality is necessary to cope with all levels on that spectrum. I believe we can use spirituality to ourselves to help us get through the minor to the major. We still need it from the major to the extreme, but we need other things as well at that point.
Right. So I mean, I think your look at mental health has obviously changed significantly since you've actually experienced hand in hand. So can you share a little bit of what mental health is and how we can identify, I guess, when we're in a mental health crisis, maybe?
Well, it can range from anything, from the most minor. The key words are anxiety and depression. Then there is more. There's psychosis. There's all the extremes. There's OCD,
ACDC.
OCD. Okay. OCD. There's so many different parts of it. We mostly experience, and that's kind of what we'll focus on, is the anxiety, the depression. And it can start out minor and dealing with everyday things. And sometimes the biggest thing I think we have is the feeling of we're alone. and we don't know how to cope. We don't know how to get through whatever it is we're trying to get through, or whatever is causing us to be anxious, or whatever is causing us to be depressed. But that's one thing I've learned on this journey is I am not alone. I am never alone. I believe spiritually, we are meant to do that part alone. Our spiritual journey is alone. But this human journey that we're on, we're not meant to go through this alone, ever. And regardless of how alone you feel, you're not. You just have to open your eyes and reach out. And it's that finding the strength to ask for help, because it's the smartest thing you can do. It's the strongest thing you can do. People think asking for help is a weakness, and it is not. It is a sign of strength, because if you don't know how to say make a wedding cake, and I don't know why that came in my mind, but if you've been tasked with that, your best friend said, I can't afford somebody else, can you please make me a wedding cake? Holy crap, okay, I don't know how to make and decorate a wedding cake, but what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to ask for help, whether it's go to Google or go to somebody who knows how to do that. So it's the strongest, smartest thing to do. It's the same thing when you're struggling, whether you're struggling with how to your crazy kids at home, you're fighting excessively with your husband, your job is bringing you down, financial problems. Reach out to someone who can help you. And you know what? It doesn't always have to be that best friend, because there's emotions and everything else tied with that, or your family. Reach out to someone you can trust, and they're going to hold space for you. And like you said, whether it's you, me, there's so many people in this world. And I've done some presentation talks, and I have stood up in front of a room full of people and given my cell number out, and with total intentions that I hope they use it if they need to. If I can help one person get through a bad day, a bad week, a bad year, get them through to the other side, it's a success.
I think where we get it is that we think anxiety and depression is a foreign thing, and that we shouldn't ever feel it. But when you talk about it in a minor way, it's something we all have inside of us. And on different days and at different events, at different things, we've experienced different parts of our journey, whether we're up high traveling in the clouds or we're really deep, dark, and low. We are going to have some anxiety and depression. It's kind of a part of this human experience, and it's learning to navigate through it. Um, at the beginning, so that it doesn't have to boil up to be something so big. Because, like you said, from the minor to the major, these are things we can handle, we can cope with, we can find tools that can help us pass through this, easier. But I think it's when we're really quiet about it, when we're holding it really deep within, when we're almost resenting it or resisting it, that I shouldn't feel this way. This is foreign. This is what other people experience, but I shouldn't experience it. And I think it's because of the belief system of that anxiety and depression, and really what the consciousness as a whole has put it out there as. Like, I think we all have a little bit of it, and it's okay, but it's to learn how to navigate through it so it doesn't have to get so dark and so deep that at that point where, like, I can't even get out of this, or I don't even know if I can get out of this. Of course we always can. There's always help and support, and like you said, sometimes we go way beyond spirituality for what we need, and that's great. It's wherever you're at, there's always somebody who will be there to reach out and help you, right? But I think the biggest thing is becoming vulnerable in what we're feeling. Our call, even before starting this recording today, was that I was struggling as a mother. I was struggling with getting, my tasks done, and being the mom that I need to be, and the wife, and just talking to you today, Sue, was like, oh wait, like, oh, I'm not alone with the way that I'm feeling. Oh, I can move through this. And I think that sometimes where mental health is created is that we isolate ourselves, and we feel so alone, and we feel like not any other human on this planet is going to understand what I'm going through. And when we get vulnerable and when we just open up, whether it's to somebody like Sue or myself, or like you said, a best friend or a husband or a partner or whatever that is, you start to go, wait, I can let this go. This is just like a pressure in my body that I'm holding on to that is igniting into something really big. And maybe if I start to talk about it, if I put words to it, it doesn't have to feel so big in my life. It's almost like once you like open the lid, it can start to pour out. But sometimes we wait so long to open the lid that there's a lot of pouring that needs to happen. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've always said, as soon as you speak it, as soon as you say it, it takes the power away. That's the hardest thing, is to say those first few words. I am struggling with. I am having dark thoughts. Whatever it is, say it and it takes its power away. And if you're worried about judgment, we, I judge myself way more than anyone else could ever judge me.
Yeah.
And we all do that. So the judging has to stop at home first, within, to be kind. That's kind of the key word. Everybody's saying you got to be kind and accepting of everybody else's situation, but start at home. It's be kind to yourself and accept your own situation. And
And
if
easy, but it is the hardest thing to do is to learn how to be kind to yourself. And in spirituality, we learn this. It's because we all have this ego, we all have this human part of ourselves. We all have this beautiful soul that is about love and is about healing and is about acceptance. But then we also have this offset ego that humbles us into reality, which isn't even real. The reality it gives us is fear and isolation and insecurity, and you're not good enough and you shouldn't talk about it and blah, 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 right? That's the ego. But the more we give power to it, the more we almost lose who we truly are, and we start to listen, and it's like this animal that starts to guide us through our life in this dark hole. And it's like, but really what's happened is we've lost our true self, and we've started to listen to that voice, that nasty voice in our head that has fed us that we're not good enough. And the more we hear it, the more we believe it, right? It's just like living in a nasty environment. We always say we're not going to become that environment, but then in the future we see ourselves crumbling just as we felt it or as we seen it in that environment we once lived in. It's the same with living with an ego in your mind. We all have an ego, and it's always going to have an opinion over us. It's always going to tell us we're not good enough. But I think if we can build our self-worth up, build our foundation of who we are, and realize we are good enough. There's going to be times when we don't feel good enough, when we don't think we should do this, when we feel like, should we show up and do a mental health talk? When are we really an advocate? But it's those moments when it's like, heck yeah, you should do it. Heck yeah, you should show up. Heck yeah, you should get vulnerable, right? So it's like, if we can learn to decipher between the voices in our head and stop giving so much power to that fearful one, because it's only showing up, because it's only fearful of the changes and shifts that maybe you need to make, you're ready to make, and you're hiding from.
For sure, for sure. And something else I've learned is mental illness. You you can't you never get over it. You can never be 100% healed from it. You learn to cope with it. And that's, to me, where spirituality comes in. It helps you cope with it. You learn to live with it and
It's
deal
like
with it.
grief and mental health kind of.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, it's living side by side with it, but not letting it control you. And learning that that day when you wake up and you have the dark, deep, dark thoughts that paralyze you, and maybe you can't even get out of bed that day. So that when you do get out of bed, that's a win. And you accept those little wins, because maybe that day that's all you get, but it's a win.
Yeah. I think that's where our ego is very extreme, right? That's where our human self is very extreme. It's like, if I want to be better and feel better, it's this big staircase that I need to climb. And it's like, or maybe I could just show up and take a deep breath today. Maybe I could show up and prioritize that I'm going to have breakfast today, or I'm going to call a friend. I'm going to try and get vulnerable. I think we always look at this huge staircase and wonder, how the hell am I ever going to climb that? But what about just today? What about just the simple, basic things of today? And I think, from me on my spiritual path, there's a lot of days where I just got to do today, because if I focus on the whole staircase or the whole month or the whole year ahead, I'd shut down right in that moment, right? And I think that that's just the part of the human experience. Anybody listening right now, it's like, yeah, you can't focus on the whole month, but you can focus on today and what you have today. And so that's with mental health too. You can't focus on that next life that you need to create or how you're going to get there, but you can focus on today and those little steps you can take that can lead you into those good places you want to get.
Yeah. And before we came on, knowing we were going to talk about this, I looked up the definition of spirituality and the different practices of spirituality. And the one thing I found was prayer, meditation, yoga, connecting with nature, and attending a spiritual or religious service. And the funny thing is, when you go to someone, let's say a counselor, and they're giving you different ways to cope and ways to deal, those 5 things are huge on their list. They are all things that are suggested to you to do. So they are so linked, spirituality and mental health, so linked.
So maybe those minor struggles we're going through is our own spiritual awakening, is our own way of saying, you don't need to try to just cope alone in isolation with the day-to-day struggle. Maybe, just maybe, you can start to create practice and prioritize and build up that self-worth and build up that community around you, so that those days of dark struggle that we do go through, every human, you can reach out, you have support, not just within you, but outside of you. And you have the tools, like you said, the prayer, the meditation, the grounding, the hanging out in nature, the finding the community. Those aren't foreign tasks. These are things we've been taught about, but let's link it to spirituality and realize it's a lot about just connecting to the things that we have available to us, that we've almost become so disconnected from through society and the consciousness.
Yeah. And the other thing that I feel that they're linked in, we have to have a faith and a trust in spirituality, that there's something else out there. And for someone who's struggling really deeply with, I don't mean just a little bit of anxiety, I mean like more to from major to extreme, they don't have a faith. They feel so alone and so isolated that there's no faith or belief that there's something else. So if you can find that little bit, it's going to be that grounding point that when you have those dark days, that you can reach back and pull from.
Yeah.
Or connect to.
It's like I'm looking around, nobody's there and nobody gets it. Right. And when you get to that place, it's very hard to let somebody in. But when you do, a little speck of light reveals for you. And I think that's when the whole table turns, right?
Yeah. And it's, like I say, it takes a lot of strength to reach out to somebody, but we're all going through it in different ways, shapes, or form. Same shit, different pile for everybody. And I think the more you get to talk about it, you go, okay, I'm not alone. I am not alone. This is normal.
I think
There's things
that's what this is today, right? Normalizing that this is a real thing and that we all go through it, whether you're a spiritual practitioner like myself or a mental advocate like you are. I look at all different stages and phases of my own life, having babies, going through the postpartum depression that everybody, I think every woman goes through in some way, shape, or form, going through the depression of life and it getting heavy and anxiety. And I think back even to my childhood when I was exploring my spirituality and didn't know what that looks like they were trying to diagnose me with, ADHD and all these different things, and they weren't really finding a diagnosis. But what about just general depression? Like that's probably what it really was, is the lack of acceptance of self that was making me isolated and in a corner, right? But that's what I mean. If people like you and I can start to talk about this and normalize it, it can become a very, very easy topic. And it doesn't have to feel like I have to be in a dark closet to whisper to somebody that I'm going through depression, because I think we're all going through a version of it.
Exactly. Same with mediumship. We was talking with another person in some of the classes, and you're in a public spot, and as soon as you start mentioning the word mediumship or spirituality, your voice lowers and you whisper it. It's like, why? We shouldn't be hiding it, and we shouldn't be hiding the struggles we're having. The words that there's a few English words that I absolutely detest. Is fine, because nothing is fine besides frog's hair. Perfect, perfection, it doesn't exist, not in the terms that it's in the dictionary. It does not exist, and we use those so much. When someone tells you they're fine, you know damn well they're not okay, and it's okay to not be okay. So it's a matter of reading past that when someone's telling you it.
I think what is, it's not about everything being amazing. It's about finding this this stable space, this part in within you that your foundation is whole. Because when we're not feeling our own self-worth, our own acceptance of self, our own, it's not even the confidence in self, but just, worthiness, a worthiness within us. When we don't feel that, we latch on to these emotions. And when these emotions come forward, they can take us on real big highs or real big lows, but there's always a crash with that, right? So if we don't know who we are and we're struggling to build ourselves up, we often latch on to these emotions, right? So somebody comes forward and they give you a compliment and they make you feel loved, or they make you feel happy, or they make you feel really good. That is temporary because you're latching onto an emotion that will not last. But if you build yourself up, whether you start to create a daily practice and you start to, do some journaling and connection and really start to listen within, listen to you. If you don't find that connection and that self-worth within you, when things happen, you latch onto the emotion, and that emotional state is only temporary. And then you continue to, it's like with carbs or sugar, you want more of it and you need it to give you that next high and that next high. And then after that high, there's that big crash where it's like, but who am I? What am I doing? Why am I here? Right. And so I found a lot with spirituality is it's kind of giving you this ongoing path of I am me and I'm okay with me. I'm good with me. I maybe don't feel blown out of this park today, but I just feel okay. And I think that that's really what I try and help people get to, is this okay state, that I'm okay to be with me, to sit with me, to hear my own thoughts, that I don't need to run or chase or find different emotions, that I just have the steadiness inside of me.
And then when you're okay with you in that steadiness, you can handle the highs and you can handle the lows. And right now in January, we're coming off a high. We're coming off of the stress of Christmas, the excitement of Christmas, the excitement of a new year. We as a society put all this pressure on new year, new resolutions. What are we going to do? And then we live in Canada, and you've got cold and you've got snow and you've got isolation. And if you have that base of being okay and have some form of self-worth, because that's lacking when you have mental illness, there's no self-worth, none. And it's a hard thing to build. But when you have that, you can handle it anything.
It's like finding, so the crash doesn't be so hard, right? Or for so long. It's like finding that middle, that stability, so that, yeah, like you said, you can go with those highs and lows, but you've got this solid foundation that can support you with whatever that is, right? Knowing that everything is temporary, everything we're feeling, every emotion we're traveling through, it's all this temporary states. But if we can build ourselves up to find that foundation, it's like a plant in a pot. The pot's solid and it's always going to be there, right? The plant some days might be bigger and some days might be lower, but the foundation itself is solid and it's full of nutrients. And those days when we're low, we still know we've got this pot to depend upon. And I think that that's what our entire foundation of our body needs to be, is we need to find that connection so deep within, so that on those low days we still know who we are, right? And so, I mean, this needs to be taught about. People need to know these things. They need to have these tools, right? So that not just when we're at the worst part of our lives, not just at the crash, but like we should be learning this from kindergarten all the way up, to find that, to build that foundation, to have that support within, um, because I think that's really where society is lacking. And then when we get to that crash, we're looking outside of ourselves because we've never ever been ignited within ourselves. We've never ever learned that we could ever build that foundation up, or that we could help ourselves through these kind of dark days as well, right?
Yes, it does need to be in the schools. It needs to be taught from a young age. And as we grow older, we expand on it. And once those kids, that your kids that are being taught this, your young ones, imagine how different their life can be when they're 30 and going through starting their own families or whatever age they're doing it, right? But you're right, it's all temporary. And when we get into the deep dark, it doesn't feel like it's temporary. It feels like this is it. This is the end. I don't know how to get out of it.
So what are some give, Sue?
Oh, first thing is talking, reaching out. Our healthcare system is a mess. It's broken. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that if you need help right now, you're going to get it. You're not. So that's where I think it comes to reaching out to others. If someone, and I have people reach out to me. They know my story. They've heard my story. They've reached out to me. I need help. I've taken training, and it's a training that I would highly suggest to anyone. It's called Mental Health First Aid. And it's no different than taking first aid course to deal with someone who's been in an accident or has cut their finger off. But it gives you a place to start and to analyze, figure out where they're at, and then help them get the help they need. Maybe they don't need the psychiatrist. Maybe they don't need the psychologist. Maybe they don't need the medication, but they need counseling. And there is counseling out there. It's hard to get to. It's a navigation system that is really hard, but it's doable. And so people like me, or there's others, say it. No one's going to leave you hanging. No one is going to leave you hanging. So talk about it. To me, that's the first thing, is to talk about it. Reach out for that help. Make that big step. And I totally believe, this is kind of jumping, but a lot of people go to their doctor, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing to do. It's a place to reach out. But if your doctor only wants you, our family doctors are not trained in medical or in mental health. They're not. Yeah, they probably touched in their training, but they're not deeply trained in it. So a lot of them, and I'm generalizing here, will just reach out and say, you need medication. And I mean, we experienced that before they would let my daughter out of the hospital. She had to go see a psychologist, and they after 20 minutes said, oh, here's a prescription, fill it, take it, be on it. No, that's not what. So sometimes, yes, sometimes you need medication. And I'm not saying medication is a bad thing. Sometimes you need medication. But medication without counseling is not the answer. Never will be. Never will be. That's putting a band-aid on a, say you've cut your leg half off and they put a tiny band-aid on there. That's the same as what medication without counseling is. So you always have to have your counseling as well.
I think that's where mental health comes in, Sue. I just had to mute you. You're echoing there for a minute. But I want to just say that I think that that's where spirituality and mental health, like spirituality sometimes can help you so much more than you realize it. Like I can talk from my own, like I remember like what grade, whenever you start to go to the doctor by yourself, because you're, you know, now a teenager and now you deal with the doctor by yourself because, you know, whatever. And I remember her giving me, I just said, you know, I am really anxious and my health isn't good, which she knew because she was always prescribing me antibiotics and all that sort of thing because I was really sick. But then when I started to tell her about, you know, I was feeling very anxious and that sort of thing, I remember the first thing I was given was a prescription um, for anxiety medication or whatever. And I think that that's, you're right, that is where the system has taken us. And so it's sad because at that age, then I started to journey alone and be like, okay, so I don't want to take the medication. So I guess I'll find myself a different avenue. And as a kid, you know, a teen, preteen, maybe even, like I found mediums and I found holistic healing. But I think that that's what I want to change now. And I think that's what you want to change too, is that this can be such an open, broad topic that if you need counseling, counseling doesn't just have to be in the way that you've seen counseling to be. Counseling can be exploring your spirituality. Counseling can be to learn meditation and the way to communicate with yourself and your soul. And counseling is this form of communication, but it's a very broad thing. And to find, what does counseling look like for you, and how does that feel? Does counseling look like finding those self-help tools? Because trust me, everybody, wherever you think you're struggling right now, there is a tool. There's a tool that can get you through. There's a tool that can get you by. But maybe you have never been through that avenue or that venture to find that, right? And I just think that that's where really spirituality is that place that we're trying to build that momentum for people to head towards, because it's natural healing. It's realizing that within you have all the ability you need to get you through, but it takes time. And like you said, if you're too dark, it's going to take time to find that. You will get there one day, but that's probably not the avenue you're going to start on. But if you're somebody like me who's been, you know, it's been minor, but my whole life I had to find another avenue for me, you know. And I always feel guilty when I hear other people's stories because they're always big, you know. This is my reason. This was my deep dark secret that brought me to why I've ascended. And I don't have a deep dark secret. Mine's all very minor. Mine's always very surface, very, I've done the depression, I've had the anxiety, I've suffered, I've definitely had the mental health, you know, but it's been minor, I guess. But you still have to learn how to cope with that. You still have to learn how to move through that, because if you don't learn you know, when you're at the minor stage, it becomes really major, really, really freaking fast. And like you said, the deeper you get, the harder it gets. It's just like it's like digging a hole, right? When you first dig, it's easier to come out, but the deeper you dig that hole, the harder it is to come out of the hole, the harder it is to believe that you can ever get yourself out of that state and space. Do you want to add to that, Sue?
You said it so eloquently. It is, the spirituality is definitely the step in the counseling. The counseling looks different for everybody. And, you know, it's the stigma, it's the general idea of what counseling is. Oh my God, I'm going to have to go in, I'm going to have to lay on a couch, they're going to psychoanalyze me, they're going to find out how terrible my thoughts are. That's not how counseling works. I've been there. I've been there. It's different for everyone. And counselors are not one fixes all, one serves all. It's no different than a hairdresser or a nail technician or your family doctor or the guy who changes your oil. It, you might have to try a couple to get to the one who's going to be right for you. And as you grow and develop, and it's the same with spirituality, as you grow and you up level, maybe that one who worked for you right at the beginning, well, you need to grow and up level and go to somebody else because they've got something different to offer you. And it's all steps on the process, that staircase you talked about. And it's working your way through, and same with the spirituality.
I agree, Sue. I think it's about finding the holistic, or not the holistic, but the approach that works for you. And if holistic works for you, I think it's really a really beautiful place to begin. I say this because, for years I did private sessions with people. So I dealt with, I would say, a lot of mental health people. And I believe I was a lot of people's parts of their journey of their self-discovery, right? Whether I was theirs forever or if I was theirs for a temporary amount of time. But to learn that we have tools, I think is a huge thing, because I think the consciousness or society has shown us that everything that we need is outside of ourselves, right? And it's like, if we can get to a place where we can start to look within and start to trust what we're feeling and start to move through the suppressions and the depletions and realize everything is temporary and that we can move through this, and whether we need the support outside of ourselves or just the journaling's enough, or maybe that deep meditation that you can go through, whatever it is, to find those things and to realize that I have everything I need to get me through these next challenges that are probably ahead of me, I think is a really powerful place to be. And I just don't think society gets that enough.
No, we talk about end the stigma, and I totally believe in that, end the stigma, because it's okay to not be okay, and all the other catchphrases. But I have found on a personal level within my family, when there's a time when my daughter is going through having a tough day, like having that day where it's all she can do, in her words, not to throat punch somebody that she absolutely loves. It's just there and needs to come out. And the people around her, even if they know her story and they're trying to be, they want to be accepting, it's still uncomfortable. So we have to get to the point where it's okay to be uncomfortable, but accept that, and accept them for who they are. Accept the awkwardness. If that person is having one of those days where they can't stand to be around other people, but the situation makes them have to be. So be accepting of it, and don't make them feel guilty or bad for it.
Totally. I think, and I think that that's too, like, a big problem that what we all go through is, like, even ourselves, like, maybe that, we're not dealing too deeply with mental health at this point or in a crisis, but there's those days when we just don't feel like leaving the house. There's those days when we're going through these events of our lives, whether it's the financial debt or the husband's away for 2 weeks like mine, or you're dealing with your kids and you're tired and you're exhausted. And it's like, we all just need to slow down a little bit and listen to our bodies, listen to what we need. I think society's taught us you just do, and you continue to show up and you continue to be and serve, and you put yourself last and you look at yourself last, and you show up for everybody first and you show up for yourself at the end of the day. But it's so wrong, and we're learning that is, like, we have to show up for ourselves first to fully feel equipped for the day ahead or the events ahead. And if we don't feel that we can show up and hold space in the way that we need to learn that saying no is okay. It's healthy. Setting boundaries is okay and it's healthy. Stepping away or stepping back in situations when we don't feel fully equipped is healthy and is necessary. And we as the people need to stop judging other people when they need to do that. Because that's the first thing we do as society. We hear Joe Below can't support this anymore. Well, what the hell, Joe? Meanwhile, we totally understand Joe because we too maybe need to step back in different aspects of our life, right? So it's like, in order to change society, we need to change. We all need to change and we all need to show up differently. We need to accept from a different vibrational state of understanding, of showing compassion to our fellow humans. Because guess what? I'm a human, and Sue, you're a human, and everybody listening today is a human going through their own human experience. And we need to show some more compassion and understanding within that.
Bravo. Like that, exactly. Because what I struggle with is different than what you struggle with. And maybe I have to go to that gathering, that party, and it's all I can do to be there. And so if I'm sitting off in a corner, instead of someone judging, why am I sitting off in the corner and not talking and not being social? It's okay. You know what? Go over and see if maybe I want to talk one-on-one. I just don't want to talk with 50 on one, you know? Yeah, it's the compassion. We have to find it. And that was one thing that with my spiritual journey, that I realized and came to realize, and it helped me mentally, is putting me first. It's like I had to help myself first. I have to put me first every single day. And so many people are going to say that's so selfish. It's so selfish. No, it's like being on the plane and the stewardesses say, the little thing comes over there. If we're in a situation and the oxygen masks come down, you put it on yourself first before you help the person beside you. It's the same thing every single day. Help yourself first so you can help someone else.
Totally. That is a great example. Great example. And so I feel like how I want to kind of end this or give some tips and tools is from a spiritual aspect. Here's a few things you can do. Sometimes we want to set boundaries, and sometimes it feels like we can't. And so if you're at that state, because sometimes that happens in all of our lives, sometimes we have obligations. And although we're learning to set boundaries and we're learning to say no, it's a step at a time, just like the staircase. We are not going to set all the boundaries, every aspect of our life yet, if we're just learning what boundaries are. But we can start in small forms. Okay. So a good boundary for yourself is looking at yourself first. The moment you wake up in the day, a deep breath for you. The moment you wake up in the day, not grabbing your phone and attracting all of the chaos again in your life. The moment you wake up in the day going, I'm going to ground myself like a tree. Because guess what? We all are trees. And if a tree isn't rooted in the earth and wind blows, what happens to the tree? It blows over. It's the same with us every single day. If we can't root into our body, into our being, into our foundation of all that we are, chaos happens and we fall over. We start to chase the emotional traumas in our life. We start to attract what isn't of our highest good. Life gets really chaotic. So every morning, if you could just take a deep breath, 30 seconds, I'm talking about, like not 5 minutes, not 10, not 15, 30 seconds, a deep breath, and send all your excess energy out into the earth, just like a tree grounded in its roots. That will change the course of your day because you're not showing up chaotic. You're showing up centered and you're giving yourself value. You're saying, I'm worthy, even if it is of this 30 seconds to myself. That's important. That's starting your day off on the right foot. The other thing is expanding your energy. Guess what, you guys? We don't show up naked. We don't go out in public and go, I'm showing up naked and vulnerable. We don't show up exposed physically, but emotionally, spiritually, we're so naked. We need to dress ourselves. And to prepare for that, we need to expand out our light energy. We all have a general aura. It surrounds us, it protects us, it attracts people towards us or pushes people from us. We have an aura, and the bigger we can make it, the more protected we can become. So when I say expand your light, it's like expand your bubble so that when you show up in public with people in places where you feel like, maybe I don't want to be here, but I need to be here, you're protecting your light energy. And you feel safe, you feel connected, you feel confident, you're in a good state, going, I can show up in this space and not have to take on everybody's feelings and emotional state and problems and suppressions and depletions, because when we show up naked, that's exactly what we do. And then we wonder when we get home why we're not functioning as good as we were prior to leaving home. And it's because we showed up naked. We showed up naked and available, and we took it all on. And then we got home, and now we have to decompress. So it's like starting to find that balance and realizing, if you prepare yourself physically, you need to prepare yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually as well, because that is a huge aspect to our life, right? And then the last thing I want to give the tip to is cord cutting. You have a conversation with somebody, you exchange emotion and energy, you feel what they feel, because there's that beautiful energetic exchange happening in this conversation. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's negative, whether it's positive, there's still an energetic exchange happening. And when you leave that conversation, that situation, that phone call, that middle finger that you gave somebody as you drove past them because they cut you off, or whatever it is, that energetic exchange happens. And where does that energy go? Well, it stays connected to you, it stays connected to that person. And until you become aware of it and disconnect, that energy is actually navigating your entire day, just like a puppet on strings. The more cords you have, the more you're that puppet on the string, and the less you feel like you have control of your own life. So, three things: ground, expand, cord cut. Three things that can save your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, your human that you are, because we're all human.
Those are three amazing, great things. And yeah, I would like to add in there, when you're with your cord cutting, is misery loves company. And we're all guilty of it. You sit with your friend and, oh, I'm having a shitty day and this is why, and you just feed off of each other. But you got to cut those cords, and it's okay to vent. It's okay to vent, and you have to get it out. But then cut the cords afterwards, for yourself, for them, because it just festers and festers if you keep it all. So you got to get it out, but don't dwell in it. Work through it, get it out, leave it. Something else is teaching our kids. I've been reading a book, and it's how we program our kids right from the get-go. The little kids, we put our belief systems onto them. And a lot of those belief systems are being perfect. We might not use the word perfect, but we want them to act in a certain way. We don't want that wild child, right? That dictates everything to us. And so we try and rein them in, but you're planting belief systems into them. And that can have negative effects for them as they go down their life. So, and then the next thing is be kind. Be kind to yourself. When you look in that mirror in the morning, instead of looking and seeing the bags under the eyes and the wrinkles and the scare hair, find one thing every morning. I try and do that. It's harder, easy to say. It's way harder than it sounds. One thing that you appreciate or like about yourself. Be kind to yourself first, because you can't be kind to others until you're kind to yourself. Yeah.
Totally. I totally agree. Totally agree with everything you said, Sue. So, people, if you're listening and this rings a bell at all, there's people like Sue, there's people like myself. You're not alone. There's groups, there's community. I have a spiritual community. And if you need, and you've tried every route and you just don't know what can help you, maybe the holistic approach is your next step. And there's always something that can help you. There's always an avenue, there's always a road. You're not alone. Reach out. So if you want to find me, I will attach my website and how to contact me. But Sue, can you share how can people find you?
Oh, I lost everything. So there you are. Yeah, you can put my contact information after at the end. I'm on Facebook. You can message me. I'm on Instagram. It's Sue Bygrove, both ones. My phone number, you can put it on. Taylor will list it afterwards. And I'm not kidding. If you are struggling, I don't care who you are. reach out to me. I am there. I will help you as best I can and point you in the right direction. And I will hold space for you. And I thank you, Taylor, for asking me here today. I really, truly enjoyed it. And if this can help one person at all, it's been a success.
Thank you, Sue. I fully agree. Fully agree. So if we could have planted just a little bit of hope in somebody's life, we have succeeded why we showed up today. So know that you are not alone. You are so very loved. And this journey that you're on, it's an experience and we're all on it. So don't isolate yourself. Don't put yourself in that corner because somebody will understand you. And if you can reach out, whether it's to a stranger or somebody you love, we will help you. We will support you. There is avenues for you. You are not alone. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We hope this rings a bell for you. And like we said, if you need support, we will tag our information. Please get a hold of us. We love each one of you dearly, and we just thank you for your support today. Take care, everybody.